Hello, and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News Channel. Today we're actually going to talk about Litecoin. Its halving is coming up in like 4 or 5 days, and that's really why I want to talk about it. It actually has, if I'm not mistaken, passed $100 just now. It might have just gone below, but yeah, 99.22. But it was past $100 just an hour ago, and it's showing strong. It's showing strong signals in the few days before the halving this time. Now, this is different from what it did before the last halving. The last halving, it pumped up about a month before, and then it just went straight down. Litecoin has not really increased in price for the last month, and indeed, it actually has dropped in price since the beginning of the month, but not nearly as catastrophically as it did right before the last halving. Because the last halving, it basically pumped way up and then just basically fell off a cliff starting about a month before the halving. We're only 4 days before the halving. And if you look at the Bitcoin ratio, it's actually not too bad. It actually is at the same place as it was about 20 days ago. And recently, in the last 7 days, it's actually shown a decent amount of strength in both in terms of volume and in terms of price action and Bitcoin ratio, which is completely different of how it actually behaved last time. Uh, last time around at this point in the juncture. So what I'm wondering is Litecoin going to have another bull run in the few days before, or possibly in the day or two after the halving? And I think that actually might be the case, because if you really think about it, up to the halving and after the halving, there's going to be less Litecoin available on the open market for sale. Now, we know a couple of whales do control the mass supply of Litecoin, and the overall supply is not going to change, but the amount that's actually on the market for sale might actually change will actually change after the halving, because each block will then only get half the rewards that they are getting now. So the miners who are selling Litecoin will want to sell it for more money because they're mining less. And since there's going to be a less overall supply on the market, if the same number of people actually want to buy, that will result in a higher price. Now, there is a good possibility that after the halving, people lose interest in Litecoin and the demand will go way down. And in that case, the price will go way down. So you're taking a big risk of buying Litecoin right now. But let's look at the 1 month movements for Litecoin on this graph. I'm using CMC because since I'm looking at like 7-day or 1 month movements and not hourly movements for Litecoin, CMC actually gives like these lines. The green's for fiat value, and the orange is for Bitcoin ratio. So CMC on this kind of data actually gives really good data. If you want like hourly technical trading analysis, look at TradingView instead. So if you look at the price of Litecoin, you can see like mid-month around July 15th, July 16th, it actually hit its lowest point, and it's actually recovered some since then, and now it's closing in on $100 again. And if you look at Bitcoin ratio, you can see the same pattern. It actually bottomed out at about 842,000 Satoshi on about July 16th, and then it just suddenly came up again, and now it's finally crossed another line, and we're getting close to 100,000 Satoshi. So at the 1 month graph, the weakness was really the first half of July, and the second half of July has actually been fairly strong, both for Bitcoin value and for Litecoin USD value. And furthermore, if we look at the 7-day graph, you can see it's fairly up, both in terms of USD value and in terms of Bitcoin ratio. The 7-day graph, we started at about 93,000 on July 26, and then now we're at about 98,000. And in terms of USD value, $93 to almost $100 right now. And the more encouraging thing is that as we are getting closer to the halving, there seems to be more speculative pressure, because even though the volume has been up and down, it looks like it is slowly going up. And price usually does follow volume, and it looks like the volume this time actually has a positive effect on the price. From a technical standpoint, that's a little longer, maybe a day or two. You can see that since July 31st, which is yesterday, well, actually, ever since July 29th, we've been having higher lows. You can see the higher lows, and higher highs as well. So a high here, then we have another high here, and then we have another high here, and then we have a higher low here, and we're going slightly up. So if you look at the slanted line right there, you can draw a line with a slight upward slope. And if that continues until the halving or a little bit after the halving, we should see, over $110 by the time that comes around. Now, there's no guarantee of that because there could be a major dip in terms of a Litecoin demand right after the halving, or maybe even like a few hours before the halving. But as the graph shows right now, the second half of July has actually been really strong. This week has actually been quite strong. And right now we are on a positive we are in a positive trend line if you look at the last half month and the last week. So there might actually be a little bit more of a Litecoin bull run. It could take off too. I'm just saying a little bit now because I'm being conservative. Because the Bitcoin ratio ever since July 30th for Litecoin and the fiat ratio ever since July 30th has actually been on a steeper slope than before when it was starting to rise from the 27th onward. So we might actually see an accelerated increase in the price of Litecoin up until the halving or maybe slightly after the halving. That is what the current trends for Litecoin actually shows in price. Higher highs and higher lows as well for the last few days. And until that trend reverses itself, that's the trajectory I'm actually going to be going on. Now, once again, buying Litecoin right now is a very large risk because you are at the precipice of an event and it could easily go both ways. Like I said, demand could drop right after the halving or possibly even a little bit before the halving, but demand could also stay the same. And then when supply pinches in half, because there's less coming onto the open market due to the decreased mining rewards, you could see a sudden spike when it actually starts halving. So it's anyone's guess what's actually going to happen, but according to the trend line right now, for the last few days, it does seem like Litecoin's on an upward trajectory, and the halving, at least so far, is impacting the price in a positive way. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you, and have a nice day.